on YouTube? Welcome back to another video. So today I wanted to go over my top 3 pros and cons when it comes to the BMW F10 platform. I'm going on owning my F10 for about 6 months now, and these are just things that I've noticed throughout my ownership. So I wanted to make today's video in case you're in a similar position and maybe you're looking to pick up a BMW F10, or you happen to own an F10 already and are just interested in hearing these pros and cons. So with that, let's get into the first pro. Alright, so the first pro when it comes to this BMW F10 platform, at least in my opinion, is the fact that these cars have a really low barrier of entry. And by that, I mean you could pick up a relatively clean example for pretty cheap, all things considered. These cars averaged between $50,000 and $60,000 when they first came to the United States. And nowadays you could pick up a base model, maybe 528, for anywhere I've seen between like 7 and 11,000 depending on the condition. And in my case, I got really lucky and found a 6-speed 535 clean California title that passed smog for less than $10,000. And it doesn't even have a lot of miles. When I picked it up, it had 130,000 miles, and the only thing it's needed so far is an oil pan reseal. So these cars are definitely super affordable if you stick around and look long enough for a good deal. Don't get me wrong, you could definitely spend a lot of money on one. I've seen the 550s, really clean examples of 550s, and of course the M5s going for still in the 30s, you know, $25,000, $35,000 range, even higher for a really low mileage M5. But if you're looking to get into a luxury sports sedan for relatively cheap, you could definitely find them out there. And I think that's why I consider this pro number 1 when it comes to these cars. All right, the second pro when it comes to the BMW F10 platform is that there's, at this point, because the car is going on over a decade old now, the first ones came to the United States in 2011, there's just an absolute massive amount of info out there. And these cars are, because of the low barrier to entry, there's a lot of people picking them up and doing a lot of cool things with them. They're extremely tunable. The 535 models up to the 550 and the M5, because they're all turbo cars, are extremely tunable, and there's a lot of information and a lot of companies out there who are doing things with these cars that you might not be able to do with other cars for the same price point. And so if you're looking to pick up an F10, especially one of the turbo models, just know that there's an absolute massive amount of info out there for people doing all sorts of types of builds, doing all sorts of types of tunes to them, getting all sorts of power figures if you're into that kind of stuff. If you're doing, or if you're into maybe not so much of the performance side but more of the styling side, there's definitely tons of info out there regarding, you know, going on air suspension, lowering the car, putting on all sorts of wheel design styles, offset, anything you can imagine. There's just an absolute massive amount of info because these cars have already been around for well over a decade. And so if you're looking to build one and you don't know where to start or don't know how to do it, I'm 100% certain you could find any info you need for these cars. So I think that's why I consider that pro number 2 when it comes to the BMW F10 platform. All right, the third and final pro I have regarding the BMW F10 platform is its styling. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I personally love the styling of the F10. That's kind of what drew my attention to it in the first place. I've always been into them for probably the better part of the last 5 years. Every time I see them on the road, I love catching them in the wild. And now that I've picked one up and had some time to learn about it and learn a little bit more about the things you could do with the outside of the car, it's just such a timeless design. Even now, over a decade later from when they first came out, they still look like brand new cars. They still look like they belong on the road. They don't look dated at all. The exterior or the interior, especially if you do a couple cool little mods here and there. I have some Alcantara stuff inside of my car that I've added, and along with a premium colored interior that I've swapped into the car looks just as good, if not better, than, you know, 90% of the cars on the road today. And I think there's a lot to be said about a car that ages really well nowadays, just because everything, in my opinion, all the new stuff is kind of starting to morph into like the same kind of design. It's all rounded and the taillights all look the same. Sometimes I confuse certain cars for other cars just because the design is all kind of the same. In those cars, the F10s, they just have a unique styling that has aged really well for them. And so that one is really subjective, but I think that that is a pretty big buying point, or just an important point when it comes to considering one of those cars. And so that's why I consider that my pro number 3 when it comes to the BMW F10 platform. All right, now that we've gone over all the pros that I have regarding the BMW F10 platform, I want to go over some of the cons. And the first one being the fact that this car is just absolutely massive. This car weighs in at approximately a little over 4,000 pounds. It's just a huge car. I come from a long line of old BMW 3 Series cars like the E30 and the E36. And those cars are very small compared to the F10. And so when I picked it up, I had a goal in mind to make it sort of a track build. I didn't have any intention of taking it to the track, but I just wanted it to handle better. I wanted it to perform a little bit better. So I was looking into suspension and sway bar upgrades and just things to tighten the chassis up a little bit. And the longer I own the car and the more I look for parts to do it, it's definitely possible. But if that's the route you want to go with one of these cars, you'd be better off probably just spending the money on a built 550, because at least it has the performance, and with the performance you're probably gonna have to upgrade the parts to make it handle accordingly, or buying a M5 that already has all the upgraded parts. And so just know that if you're looking to buy one of these cars, it's designed to be a luxury sedan. It's designed to be a car that you cruise around in and you get to work comfortably and you take on road trips. You know, it has the massaging seats in some models, you know, things like that. But just know that it's massive. This is not a car you buy and take to the track without an extensive amount of work if you didn't pick up a M5. So just be prepared for that. I wish I had I don't know, you know, I didn't want to build this car to be like a real low and slow show car, and I really wanted to build a car that was more suited for driving, and I just wish that this platform could do that for me. But I'm realizing now that that is probably not the case, and I'll have to pick up another car. But if you're looking to pick one up, just know that that's what is going to happen. Just know that these cars are huge, they're boats, and they're not designed to be as nimble as some other cars that are out there and available. All right, the second con I have regarding the BMW F10 platform is just the cost to maintain. Now, remember what I said in the beginning of the video, that these cars are $50,000 to $60,000 cars, even higher than that if you got an M5. And with that comes a high maintenance bill if you want to maintain it. These cars going on over a decade now, some of them have pretty high miles, and considering it's a luxury sports sedan, a luxury sports brand, right? Parts can be expensive and labor can be even more expensive. So if you're looking to pick one up, or if you have one already, you probably already know that maintaining one of these cars can cost quite a bit of money. It's not a Toyota or a Honda where working on it can be fairly simple. It's pretty straightforward. These are European sports cars, and with that comes a level of difficulty when it comes to repairing them. So you could definitely save a lot of money if you are working on it yourself. I'm very fortunate to be a professional automotive technician myself, so I try to handle as much of it as I can. I don't work for BMW, so I do as best I can with what I know how to do. But if you aren't as mechanically inclined and you're looking to pick one of these cars up, just know that if something does fail, like, you know, a turbo or a water pump on these cars, it could be quite expensive to get it repaired, and you just got to prepare and set aside money for that, because it can definitely cost a lot of money to keep these cars on the road, and that's why it's worth trying to find a clean example if you're able to. So that's con number 2. Let's get into the last one. Here we go. All right, so con number 3 I have for the BMW F10 platform is, in my opinion, I think that cleaner examples are getting harder and harder to find. I think finding clean examples of these cars, because of the low barrier to entry that I mentioned as the first pro to these cars, I think with that comes certain people finding these cars for whatever they can get them for, right, cheap, and building them in such a way that they end up getting junked or they end up getting damaged. and then the ones that would have been good, clean, low mileage examples get scooped up, they get built, they get messed up, and then they get, you know, trashed or whatever. And then that raises the market, which is cool if that's what you're into, but if you're trying to pick one up, it's harder and harder to find clean, undamaged examples with this platform. I've seen it happen with several other BMW platforms like the E30 and the E36, for example. I'm sure it's happening across the board. Those are just the cars I've had in the past. But to even find a clean, decent mileage E36 nowadays, not even an M3 but a base model, you're looking at over $10,000, when back in the day when I had mine, I mean, I sold a clean title, relatively low mileage one for like $2,200 one time just because I needed it gone. But it was good. It passed smog. It was a healthy car. And nowadays, that same car probably we would go for $8,000, $9,000, $10,000. And I'm seeing the same thing happen with these F10s. I'm regularly on like OfferUp and like classifieds to see how the market's doing, just because I own one. And I could tell that the cleaner examples are definitely going for more nowadays. And it's, I mean, you can still find them cheap, but you might not find a very well taken care of F10. And so even though it's possible and there still is a low barrier to entry, like I mentioned with the first Pro for these cars, that low barrier to entry is also kind of a con, because it's causing these cleaner examples to be picked up and eventually not taken care of very well. And then we end up, you know, having either clap examples or the prices go up for the clean ones. So that wraps it up for con number 3. All right, so that wraps it up for my 3 pros and cons when it comes to the BMW F10 platform. Obviously, super subjective. These are just things that I believe. These are just things that I've seen with this platform while I've owned it. You may not agree, but I wanted to make this video to kind of shed some light on some stuff now that I've owned the car for a little bit of time, and just some patterns I've recognized with these cars. They're definitely super fun cars if you can manage to pick one up. They are, like I said, timeless design. They drive really, really well, and they're super fun cars if you want to fix them up, if that's what you're into. But just know that it is a luxury sports car. It's a luxury sports brand, BMW, and you're likely going to spend a little bit of money if you're not mechanically inclined enough to take care of it yourself. So just be prepared for that. Otherwise, hopefully soon I'll be back to posting parts install. I'm actually kind of out of parts to install. I'm like waiting for some like holiday deals. I want to pick some stuff up and get ready for some more install videos. So in the meantime, I'm gonna be making videos like this, maybe some cruise around videos and stuff. But anyways, if you made it to the end, I appreciate you. Thank you. Feel free to check out some of my other videos, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.